I never thought a midnight knock on my dad's bedroom door would change anything, let alone everything. For as long as I can remember, my relationship with my father has been built on routines, quiet dinners, awkward car rides, and long silences that said more than words ever could. He wasn't cold, not exactly, just distant, like there was a wall between us made of unspoken things. I'd gotten used to it. I'd learned to stop expecting more. But that night, something in his voice wasn't usual. It started earlier in the day. We'd just arrived at the family cabin, a place that always smelled like cedarwood and old memories. It was nestled deep in the woods, a few miles out from town. The kind of place where the cell service dropped and the air felt heavier, cleaner, like the trees had secrets they weren't ready to share. The trip was supposed to be just him and me. A bonding weekend, he called it. I'd rolled my eyes, at first, assuming it would be another silent 2 days of forced hikes and small talk. But then Caleb showed up. My dad's best friend's son, the golden boy, my childhood shadow. He was staying with us for the weekend too. Last minute, apparently. I hadn't seen him in over a year, not since I left for college, and he stayed. Behind to figure things out, and now he was taller, broader in the shoulders, his laugh lower and just as infectious. His hair was still that messy, honey-brown color that made him look like he'd just rolled out of bed, like he lived a life without consequences. God, I wished I didn't notice stuff like that. But I did. I always had. He'd hugged me when he arrived casually, like we were still those kids who used to wrestle in the dirt outside the cabin, like time hadn't made things complicated. His arms wrapped around me without hesitation, and for a second, I couldn't breathe right. I pretended. It didn't shake me. We unloaded groceries and settled in. Caleb took the room next to mine, and for the rest of the evening we laughed over dinner, made fun of Dad's terrible chili recipe, and played cards like old times. Caleb kept brushing against me. Just little things. His knee knocking mine under the table, his arm slung around the back of my chair. Probably nothing. Probably just him being him. Still, by the time I lay in bed that night, staring at the wooden ceiling, heart racing for reasons I couldn't admit, not even to myself, I knew this weekend wasn't going to go how I expected, and then, just past midnight, my dad's voice called out through the hallway. "Hey, can you come in here for a second?" And everything started to shift. Caleb and I had been orbiting each other since we were 12. Back then, our parents thought it was convenient. 2 boys the same age, always dumped together during long weekends, holidays, or when life got inconvenient for the adults. I used to dread those visits at first. Caleb was loud where I was quiet, reckless where I was careful. He'd jump off rocks into the lake without checking the depth, talk back to teachers with a grin, break rules just to see if he could get away with it. But somehow he'd always pull me along with him. And I let him. We were opposites in all. The predictable ways, but something about us just clicked. He made me feel braver. I think I made him feel understood. Even now, years later, as he sprawled across the couch in a hoodie that had holes in the cuffs and socks that didn't match, he still had that same energy. That same way of talking like the world was a game and he knew the cheat codes. But there was something quieter underneath it too now, like he wasn't trying quite as hard to be the loudest person in the room. "You still get that crease between your eyebrows when you're thinking too hard," he said, nudging me with his foot as I tried to focus on a crossword puzzle by the fire. I looked up, caught off guard. "Do not," he grinned. "Do too, right here." He reached over, tapping the spot just between my brows with a finger, his touch lingering just a beat too long. I held my breath. "You still cheat at cards?" I asked, trying to sound nonchalant, shifting away just enough to pretend like my skin hadn't just burned under his touch. "Only when I care about winning." He smirked and threw a pillow at me. That was the thing about Caleb. Everything he said had a double edge. You could never quite tell if he was joking or confessing. Later that evening, just before the power flickered out from the first signs of a surprise rainstorm, We were unpacking the spare blankets when I realized something. "There's only one sleeping bag in the closet," I muttered, holding up the faded blue cocoon of nylon and stuffing. "Did no one think to check this?" My dad glanced over from where he was fiddling with the heater. "That's fine. Caleb can bunk with you, or take the couch." "The couch is basically a medieval torture device," Caleb said, stretching dramatically before snatching the sleeping bag out of my hands. "Guess I'm crashing with you. You cool with that?" I swallowed. "Yeah, sure." His smile was easy, relaxed. Mine wasn't. It wasn't a big deal. We'd shared space before, basement, floors, tents on camping trips. But back then, things felt simpler. Back then, I didn't lie awake remembering the weight of his hand on my shoulder or the way his voice dropped when he was tired. Now, even brushing shoulders while brushing our teeth had me looking away too fast. That night, as the rain lashed, the windows and thunder rolled in the distance, Caleb changed into an old t-shirt and boxers, completely unbothered, and flopped onto the mattress on the floor with a groan. "I forgot how cold it gets up here," he muttered, tugging the sleeping bag up to his chin. "If I die of hypothermia, tell the world I went out stylishly," I laughed, sliding under my own blanket just inches away from him. Stylish isn't exactly the word I'd use. He turned toward me, eyes catching mine in the dim light. "What would you use?" I froze for half a second too long. Loud, annoying, warm-blooded, apparently. He snorted but didn't look away. Neither did I. In that moment, between the storm outside and the quiet between us, I realized something I hadn't let myself think for a long time. I didn't just miss him. I wanted him. The storm got worse sometime after midnight. At first, it was just wind rattling the old windows and rain pounding the roof like 100 tiny fists. But then came the crack of thunder. Too close, too loud. And the power blinked out completely, leaving the cabin in silence, save for the occasional flicker of lightning. I lay there, staring at the ceiling in the dark, hyper-aware of the space between Caleb and me. We'd rolled out the sleeping bags side by side on the floor, just a few inches between them. But now that the lights were gone, the distance felt smaller, warmer, sharper. Then I heard it. A low groan, the sound of wind slamming something hard outside the cabin. Caleb sat up abruptly. What was that? No clue. I reached for my phone to use the flashlight, but it was dead. Of course. Could have been a branch or the shed door. I locked it earlier, but maybe... Another slam. Caleb was already up, pulling on his hoodie. "Come on. If it's the shed, we should make sure nothing's flying off. Dad's tools are in there, right?" Reluctantly, I got up, grabbing my coat and shoving my feet into wet sneakers by the door. The air outside hit like a slap, cold and damp, wind tugging at our clothes as we hurried across the yard. The storm lit the sky in ghostly flashes, rain, soaking through my hoodie in seconds. We wrestled with the shed door for what felt like forever, finally managing to wedge a piece of firewood against it. By the time we stumbled back to the cabin, drenched and shivering, Caleb was cursing under his breath. "Okay," he said through chattering teeth. "Change of plan. We're doing something extremely controversial." I raised a brow as I peeled off my soaked hoodie. "Like what? Voting for a warm bath?" "Body heat," he said simply, and started dragging both our sleeping bags together into one big mess. "This place is freezing, and that thin blanket of yours is basically tissue paper." I hesitated. "You serious?" He gave me a look. "Do you want to die in your dad's cabin out of sheer stubbornness? Come on. We used to do this all the time camping. Yeah, when we were kids. Before I started noticing how he looked when he stretched, or how his laugh hit me somewhere in the chest. Before lying next to him became something dangerous. But I nodded anyway, crawling into the makeshift cocoon beside him. It was tight. Warmer, yes, but tight. Our knees knocked, and I could feel the heat of his bare arm brushing mine beneath the fabric. He didn't seem bothered, just pulled the top of the sleeping bag over both our shoulders and sighed like it was the best decision he'd made all night. "This is nice," he murmured after a while, voice barely audible over the storm. "Kind of forgot how peaceful it is out here, even with the weather trying to kill us." I nodded, unsure what to say. I could smell the faint scent of his shampoo, something clean, like mint and pine, and every time he shifted, the fabric rustled and brushed against me like a whisper. I turned my face away, trying to focus on anything but the ache blooming in my chest. It was unbearable. The closeness, the familiarity, the fact that I could reach out right now and touch him. Tell him. Let it all out. But what would happen if I did? Would he laugh, pull away, say something that would shatter everything? "Hey," he said suddenly, his voice softer now, more careful. "You okay?" I looked over. His eyes were barely visible in the low light, but they were searching mine. "Yeah," I lied. "Just cold." "Liar," he whispered, and shifted. Closer. His thigh pressed against mine. His hand brushed mine under the covers, whether intentional or not, I couldn't tell. But he didn't move it. Neither did I. My heart thudded. We lay there for another few minutes, breathing in sync, the air between us thick with something unsaid. And then, his fingers curled slightly, just enough to graze mine again. It was subtle. So subtle he could deny it later if he wanted to. But it was enough. My pulse roared in my ears. "Caleb!" He turned his head toward me, just barely. "Yeah?" The word caught in my throat. "I want you. I've always wanted you. Please don't make this feel one-sided." But I couldn't say any of that. Not yet. "I never thanked you," I said instead, "for coming up here with me. I know it's not really your scene anymore." He let out a quiet chuckle. "Are you kidding? A freezing cabin, no power, almost dying from flying toolboxes? This is peak nostalgia," I smiled, despite myself. "You could have been anywhere this weekend." His voice turned quieter again. "Yeah, but I wanted to be here." He didn't say why, but he didn't have to. In the silence that followed, our hands finally found each other beneath the sleeping bag. Fingers hesitant at first, then lacing together like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't breathe for several seconds. He didn't let go. At some point, the storm faded into the background, a distant growl instead of a roaring force. And yet the silence inside the cabin only made my heart beat louder. Caleb's hand was still in mine. We hadn't moved. Not really. Every breath I took felt tighter, fuller, like my chest was packed with something I couldn't name. His thumb brushed against my knuckle absent-mindedly, and every time it did, it felt like it sent a shiver straight to my spine. I didn't know if he realized what he was doing. Maybe he was half asleep. Maybe this meant nothing to him. Or maybe it meant everything. I swallowed. "You remember the last time we came here together?" He shifted slightly, his voice low and husky with fatigue. "The summer before college?" "Yeah. You made me climb that stupid hill just to get a signal. You complained the whole way. And then I dropped my phone in the lake." I laughed softly, remembering the way he'd stood at the edge of the water, drenched and barefoot, yelling like the world had ended. But that wasn't the part that stuck with me. It was what came after, the way we'd sat under the stars, dripping, wet, eating marshmallows from the bag because the fire wouldn't catch. It was the way he'd looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching, the way I almost said something. Almost. "I never told you," I said, my voice catching. "But I kind of liked that night." He looked at me. Really looked at me. "Me, too," he said. His hand squeezed mine, just barely. The words burned at the back of my throat. I wanted to tell him everything, that I'd spent years pretending the feelings didn't exist, that I'd replayed every casual touch, every glance, that lingered too long, wondering if it had meant more. That being here with him now felt like I was standing on the edge of something I'd been circling forever. I've been thinking a lot lately, I started, hesitating, about how some things never really leave you. Caleb shifted onto his side, facing me. His eyes were clearer now, and the warmth in them made my stomach twist. Like what? Like you, I whispered. The silence after that was thick enough to choke on. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at me, brows drawn slightly, his breath shallow. For a second, I thought I'd ruined everything, that I'd misread every moment, every signal. But then he said, "Why didn't you ever tell me?" My throat felt tight. Because I didn't want to mess it up. I didn't know if you felt the same, or if I was just being stupid. His expression softened in a way I'd never seen before. He sat up slowly, dragging the blanket. With him, our hands still joined between us. "You're not stupid," he said, "and you didn't mess anything up." The way he looked at me then, eyes searching, jaw tense like he was holding something in. It felt like the moment I'd been waiting for without realizing it. "I don't know when it started," he admitted. "Maybe that night by the lake. Maybe before. But I'd be lying if I said I haven't thought about this too." I blinked. "You have?" He nodded. "So many times. But I didn't want to lose you either. And I didn't think you'd ever—" "I did," I interrupted, voice thick. "I do." The distance between us felt impossibly small and unbearably vast all at once. He looked like he wanted to say something else, but the words got stuck. Instead, he reached up, slowly, giving me time to move, to pull away, and brushed a damp strand of hair from my forehead. My skin burned where he touched me. "You're shivering," he said, voice barely audible. "I'm not cold." We stayed like that for a moment, faces inches apart, breath mingling in the still air. My heart thundered against my ribs, each beat a question. Now? Are we really doing this? And then he leaned in. It wasn't a dramatic kiss. There was no cinematic crash of thunder or swelling music. It was soft, tentative, like he was testing the weight of it, like he didn't want to scare me away. But the moment our lips touched, everything else disappeared. The storm, the fear, the years of unspoken words. All of it fell away as I kissed him back, pressing closer, our joined hands caught between us. His mouth was warm, familiar, and new all at once. He tasted like rain and sleep, and something I couldn't quite name, something that felt like home. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine, eyes closed. "I've wanted to do that for so long," he murmured. I let out a shaky breath, still trying to process that this was real. That it wasn't just a dream I'd wake from in some lonely dorm room, aching with regret. "So have I whispered. He pulled me in again, this time into a full embrace. His arms wrapped around me, solid and safe, like he was afraid I might vanish. I buried my face into his shoulder, breathing him in. "I don't know what this means," I said, muffled against him. "I don't know what comes next." "Neither do I," he admitted. "But I don't want this to be just tonight." I pulled back slightly to look at him. "You sure?" He smiled, soft, a little nervous. "I'm sure I've never felt like this about anyone else. That has to count for something." I nodded, feeling the lump in my throat swell again. "I've been so scared," I confessed, "that if I said it out loud, everything would break." "It didn't," he said, cupping the side of my face with one hand. "It didn't break. We're still here." His thumb brushed along my cheekbone, and it was the gentlest thing I'd ever felt. We lay back down, still facing each other, this time with no space between us. His arm draped across my waist, anchoring me to the moment. I held onto it, held onto him, like he was the only thing real. And maybe he was. In the quiet that followed, I felt something shift, not just between us, but inside me. Like a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying had finally lifted. For the first time in years, I wasn't hiding, not from him, not from myself. I don't want to wake up tomorrow and pretend this didn't happen, I said quietly. Then, don't, Caleb whispered. We'll figure it out, whatever this is. I want it too. I closed my eyes, his breath warm against my skin, his fingers curled into mine beneath the blankets. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this could be the beginning of something real. When I woke up, it took me a second to realize where I was. The soft creak of the old cabin wood, the faint scent of pine and last night's rain, and Caleb's arm draped heavily over my waist, his breath warm against the back of my neck. Didn't move right away. I didn't want to. His hold on me was so casual, like it belonged there, like we'd been doing this for years. My hand, still clasped with his, was tucked against my chest, and I could feel the slow, steady rhythm of his heartbeat through his palm. It should have felt surreal. Instead, it felt right. You're awake, he murmured, his voice still, raspy with sleep. I smiled, eyes still closed. I didn't want to move. You looked too peaceful. I drool when I sleep. Yeah, I said, grinning. I know. He groaned and pressed his forehead against the back of my neck. Great. Romance dead before it even started. Please. I'm still here, aren't I? You are, he said softly. That part still feels kind of unreal. I finally rolled over to face him. His hair was a mess, his eyes still heavy-lidded, and he looked annoyingly perfect in the morning light spilling through the window. Hi, I said. Hi. We both laughed at how awkward and simple it sounded, and somehow, that made it feel even more intimate. So, he said, brushing his fingers gently down my arm, are you freaking out yet? Terrified, he nodded. Same. But I searched his face. Not in a bad way. He smiled. No. More like, I can't believe I finally got to kiss you and not ruin everything. I felt my cheeks flush. That's funny. I spent the last 2 years thinking if I so much as looked at you too long, you'd disappear. His hand found mine again, thumb tracing slow circles over my skin. I'm not going anywhere, he said. The words sank into me, heavy and comforting, all at once. For a while we just lay there, tangled up in silence, letting it settle around us. There was no rush, no pressure, just the quiet realization that things had shifted and we weren't trying to undo it. Eventually, I broke the stillness. What happens now? He sighed, not in annoyance, but like he was bracing himself for the weight of the question. Well, I'm going back to school next week, he said. You've got work and your dad still doesn't know I'm staying here. Don't remind me, he chuckled. So yeah, real life's gonna be a thing again, but I want to try. I looked at him. Even if it's complicated? Especially because it's complicated, he said. You're worth it. My throat tightened again. That was happening a lot lately. I want to try too, I said, even if we're figuring it out as we go. His eyes softened. We've always been good at winging it. And fighting over playlists, I added. Oh God. If you play that one sad indie song again, it's atmospheric, Caleb. It's depressing, he teased, rolling his eyes. If we're dating, I reserve the right to ban moody lakeside music. My heart stumbled a little at the word, dating. He'd said it like it was already real, like he believed it could be. Are we really doing this? I asked, quieter now. He leaned in, his forehead touching mine. We are. Then he kissed me again. Slower this time, not nervous or tentative, just sure. And maybe for the first time in a long while, I felt sure too. When we finally got up, the storm had passed, leaving the world washed clean. Outside the window, the trees shimmered in the morning sun, droplets clinging to the leaves like tiny reminders that something had broken. Yes, but something had also bloomed. It felt like a beginning. And as we packed our bags and made plans to sneak him past my dad, again, it didn't feel like the end of anything. It felt like we'd finally started the chapter we were always meant to write. We didn't talk much during the drive back, but it wasn't the kind of silence that stretched awkwardly between two people unsure of what they were now. It was comfortable, charged even. Every glance between us felt like a secret. Every accidental brush of fingers over the gear shift felt like a promise. I drove while Caleb sat beside me, arm resting on the edge of the open window, wind tugging lazily at his hair. He looked different now, same hoodie, same smirk. But there was a softness in his expression I hadn't noticed before, a vulnerability he wasn't trying to hide. I think I wore the same one. We stopped for gas outside of town, and as I stepped back into the car, he handed me a bottle of water without asking. His fingers lingered over mine. "You okay?" he asked, searching my face. "Yeah," I said honestly. "Are you?" He nodded. "Better than I've been in a long time." A small, quiet pause. "Hey," he said, voice lower. "I was thinking, I want to come back next weekend, if that's okay with you." My heart jumped in a way I couldn't control. "You sure you want to spend more time in my dad's haunted cabin?" He smirked. "I'm not scared of ghosts. And besides, your bed's not so bad. Dude, that bed is a death trap. It creaks if you breathe." He leaned closer. "Guess we'll have to be quiet then." I laughed, but something about the way he was looking at me made my stomach tighten. Again. Not from nerves this time, from wanting, and from knowing, finally, that he wanted me too. Later, as we pulled into my driveway, that old dread crept up, the one that always followed me home. But this time, when I shut the engine off and glanced at Caleb, he reached over and took my hand without a word. He just held it, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "You don't have to figure it all out tonight," he said quietly. Squeezed his hand. "I know. Just don't disappear on me." "I'm not going anywhere," he said again, firmer this time. "Even if your dad catches me and makes me chop wood for a week." I chuckled, heart full. "You're really bad." At being subtle, he grinned. "I figured I'd go all in now. No more pretending, right?" "No more pretending," I echoed. Before we got out of the car, he pulled something from his jacket pocket and held it up between us. It was that dumb plastic compass I'd found in the attic, the one I'd shown him at the cabin, half joking, that maybe it would point us in the right direction. I swiped it, he said with a small shrug. "Thought it might come in handy." I blinked at it, then at him. "You romantic thief." "Call it insurance," he said, eyes on mine. "For the next time we lose our way." Something in my chest folded in on itself. I reached for it, but instead of taking it, I gently closed his fingers back around it. "You keep it," I said, "so you always know where to come back to." He didn't smile right away. Just looked at me like I'd cracked something wide open in him. Then, slowly, he leaned forward and kissed me, soft and warm and unhurried. We didn't need to say anything after that, because even if the world outside this car was complicated, family, school, distance, fear, we'd found something steady between us, a direction, a beginning, and maybe that stupid compass didn't point north, but tonight it had. Pointed straight to him, and that was enough.